Sean bienvenidos a un nuevo plano.
Bienvenidos a un nuevo plano.
Un nuevo viaje.
Un nuevo viaje.
Un nuevo viaje.
Donde la visión es bidireccional.
Bidireccional.
ARI. Exposición comercial de tecnología oftalmológica.
Every new day, the world awakens with countless moments of joy, discovery, and hope. New stories and new memories. As Biotech Healthcare, we are here to enrich these moments, improve quality of lives, help people live better all around the world. We are with them in every moment they look through life, in every moment they mirror their beauty, or as they walk strongly towards their dreams. Our journey was founded on a vision for providing light and visual excellence to all parts of the societies. Established in India in 1999, we've been empowering communities worldwide to access advanced healthcare technology and products. And in less than a quarter century, we've introduced over 50 different products, expanding into 3 different verticals in the medical device industry. We are here to enable access to innovation.
Hello, welcome to ARI 2024, to this session 7 about refractive surgery. This will deal about a debate. The debates will be 2. Debate 1 will be about intraocular refractive surgery in versus corneal in a presbyopic age, while the debate 2 will happen about corneal versus phakic IOL or intraocular refractive surgery in low and moderate myopia. This is a most exciting session with 2 debates of and very important speakers with very solid background and opinions. We'll have the debate. The first debate will be about the corneal versus intraocular surgery in the presbyopic age, and Dan Reinstein will defend his position versus Ortega Usoviaga, Dr. Usoviaga from Madrid, and Julio will show his opinion. So first, Dan Reinstein is on the stage. Thank you.
Well, thank you for inviting me to speak in this debate. I will be making the case for corneal surgery as the best treatment option for presbyopia in the absence of cataract. And these are my financial disclosures. As we all know, the treatment options for presbyopia include multifocality, either by intraocular lenses, corneal inlays, even corneal laser procedures, but also monovision, which is contact lenses or IOLs, or corneal laser procedures. But the convergence of the last 20 years, everyone is now treating with extended depth of field. And this is combined with a micro anisometropia, as we used, for example, in Presbyond, and which is now being emulated by IOLs. Presbyond is a well-established procedure now with over 320,000 performed around the world in more than 250 centers, and we have 15 peer-reviewed publications. The patient satisfaction of Presbyond is excellent, with scores over 95% at all distances for myopia and hyperopia, as, for example, here found by the study with Sri Ganesh and Sheetal Bra. Spectacle independence was also in the 90s, 95% or more. These results were matched by another study by Andrea Russo. As a comparison, we did a literature review of clear lens exchange with the most commonly used modern multifocal IOLs. And the patient satisfaction in all of these papers is also 94% and higher for the vast majority. So if patient satisfaction is over 90% for all treatments, how do we actually differentiate between them? Here I'm going to make the case for Presbyond as being the procedure that is safer, more accurate, less side effects, and is adjustable and reversible. Let's talk first about safety. The safety of Presbyond is excellent, with no eyes losing 2 lines of best spectacle-corrected vision in our studies, equivalent to the standard of LASIK. Comparing the safety of LASIK to intraocular lens surgery is a little bit absurd because there are many factors, and the risk profile clearly changes with patient age. In the discussion, we can go into these in more depth, but I think we can conclude that for patients in their 40s, corneal surgery must be the preferred procedure compared to lens surgery based on safety alone. What we have seen with doctors adopting Presbyond is that as the confidence grows with the results, the preference for Presbyond also grows to include patients in their 50s and even in their 60s. With more experience in Presbyond, this continues to extend until you reach the point which we've reached at London Vision Clinic, which is that Presbyond is the preferred option unless there is a visually significant cataract or refractive instability from lens changes. Now, visually significant cataract is measured objectively. OSI, ocular scatter index, contrast sensitivity, DLI from the Tracy. Well, let's talk now about accuracy. This is a literature review of the studies reporting outcomes of Presbyond showing very high binocular uncorrected vision across all studies. Now, going back to the literature review that we did for multifocal lenses, the uncorrected visual results are between 54% and 72% 2020 in these selected studies, where the satisfaction was reported as being above 90%. So if we average all of the studies together, the Presbyond, obviously being LASIK, achieves 91% 2020 or better rates, compared to the maximum with the AT LISA at 87%, down to 69% with the Vivity. So what about the side effects? Well, in Presbyond, there is no loss of contrast sensitivity, which confirms that the quality of vision has not been affected by increased aberrations. Dysphotopsia is very rare, with only mild cases reported in the Sri Ganesh study. And similarly, Andrea Russo only found 1 hyperopic patient with moderate dysphotopsia or glare. In comparison, we all know that patients' subjective complaints with diffractive IOLs, which cause rings around lights at night, glare, and distorted point spread function, is common in many, many patients. As an example, in this study with the AT LISA trifocal, 64% of patients found glare and halos to be moderately disturbing or worse. Let's talk about adjustability. One of the great benefits of Presbyond is that it's simple to do an enhancement if necessary, the same as for a standard LASIK. In our original publications, the enhancement rate was around 20%, but that was because we were using the Hansatome. When we switched to the VisuMax for flap creation, this enhancement rate went down by half to about 10%. But there are a number of other factors that need to be considered for enhancement rates. For example, the refractive outcomes in our study were the same as those in the study by Sri Ganesh, with both studies using all of the modern methods for optimizing results and standardization, nomograms, etc. And let me point out that both Sri Ganesh and I have had Presbyond about 10 years ago, and we're really delighted with our results. So why don't we get 100%? Well, because there are human biological factors that introduce variables that cannot be controlled for. However, what's interesting here is that in the Sri Ganesh study, the enhancement rate was only 3%, which is, of course, much lower than ours. Now, the difference here can be thought of as the clinician's choice to either adjust the correction or to adjust the patient's expectations. So enhancement rate in and of itself is not a good metric. Going back to the multifocal studies, the enhancement rates are very low, as reported between none and 5 to 7%. Now, what that means is that the remaining patients have actually been enhanced on their expectations rather than on their refractions. Finally, reversibility. Reversibility in Presbyond is very simple. You just wear a pair of glasses. Or, of course, you can simply do a routine LASIK and adjust the anisometropia up to the comfort level. So there's no need for complex custom ablation profiles because Presbyond only modulates spherical aberration, and that's a symmetrical aberration, and it doesn't induce central islands or central steepening like all of the other corneal multifocal techniques. So to summarize, the most compelling evidence for Presbyond is the growing number of refractive surgeons who are choosing this procedure for themselves, because these are surgeons who often come to our course as very happy multifocal diffractive surgeons and then switch over to this. And not only that, but then they finally have the surgery in their own eyes so that they don't have to make excuses in front of the patients about not being good candidates. Similarly, another very high performance visual requirement population, which is commercial pilots, are choosing Presbyon for their treatment. And we all know that the European aviation authorities did not allow diffractive IOLs until recently. And now they've only allowed it if after the surgery someone passes glare and contrast testing, which is a risk that I suspect most pilots won't really want to take, especially if they don't have a cataract. So therefore, Presbyon is my procedure of choice because it provides correction of even plano presbyopes, including a very wide range of refractive error. It also corrects cylinder accurately. It is based on natural aberrations, which is the spherical aberration, and it's centered on the visual axis, which means that in the future, if the patient does get a cataract, they can have a monofocal, high-quality, low PCO rate intraocular lens because the EDOF is already on their cornea, centered on the visual axis. Presbyon is easily enhanced in the future many times without any issues because it's just a LASIK procedure. There's minimal compromise to contrast sensitivity and, of course, night vision. And the thing is, it's tolerated by most of the patients that walk through the door. So whereas only 50% of patients tolerate monovision, 95 to 97% of patients will be candidates for Presbyon, with only a 3-minute additional testing time of the plus 150 acceptance test. Functional stereoacuity is maintained, a big plus for eye surgeons. And of course, it's LASIK, so it's a bilateral 10-minute procedure that's healed in 3 hours. The patient is reading the menu that evening to their spouse, who comes in the next morning asking to have surgery themselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. And now, the case for intraocular surgery will be made by Julio Ortega Usobiaga. Julio, you are the next.
Good afternoon to everyone. It's a pleasure being with you here. And I want to thank Professor Alio to letting me debate again with my eminent colleague, Dan Reinstein. We're going to talk on the topic about corneal versus intraocular surgery in the presbyopic age. What do we have in surgery in the presbyopic age? Well, on the one hand, we have corneal approach with a classic laser monovision, LASIK or PRK. We have corneal inlays and we have presby-LASIK, like Supercore, Presbyon, Presbymax, Wave IQ. CK and Intracore are not used anymore. On the other hand, we have intraocular surgery, and the most popular of them is the one that is performed with trifocal IOLs. Let's present some scientific evidence on trifocals. First, trifocal IOLs in easy presbyopes. Those are cataract patients or refractive lens exchange in hyperopes. In 2017, we published in the American Journal of Ophthalmology our experience with more than 10,000 eyes with the fine vision trifocal and the Zeiss trifocal with very good results. And this year, we have published in the Journal of Refractive Surgery our experience with the new Reina Ray 1 trifocal IOL in more than 10,000 eyes. I'm so proud to say that our results were impressive. As you can see here, we had great efficacy index with a trifocal and a trifocal toric, with good safety index as well. Here, you can see the predictability we achieve with these trifocal intraocular lenses. Contrast sensitivity results are very good, with more than 99% of spectacle independence. Night vision satisfaction was 2 to 3%, and night driving satisfaction 8%. More than 97% of the patients will repeat surgery again. However, not all patients are easy. Here we have refractive lens exchange and trifocal IOLs in emmetropic presbyopes. We published our experience last year in the JRS and 3 years ago in the American Journal of Ophthalmology. These pieces of research have been also published in a PhD thesis, and we also had a mention in the American Academy of Ophthalmology webpage as the paper of the month. Our patients were real emmetropic patients from minus 0.25 to plus 0.25 spherical equivalent. We had patients with monocular surgery and patients with binocular surgery both younger than 55 or older than 55. Only 3.3% of our patients wouldn't repeat surgery again. Patients that have undergone LASIK surgery are difficult patients, but we have experience with trifocal IOLs in these patients. Although many colleagues are against multifocal IOL surgery in patients with previous LASIK, we have experience with these patients. The first question we have to answer is monofocal or trifocal after LASIK. To answer this question, we published our results in refractive lens exchange after myopic LASIK in the Indian Journal of Ophthalmology this year. We compared two groups, one with a monofocal IOL and the other one in trifocals. Of course, the uncorrected distance visual acuity was similar in both groups, and near vision was better in the trifocal group. Safety was very good in both groups. So the answer is yes, we can use both monofocal or trifocal IOLs after LASIK. Can we use trifocals after myopic LASIK and hyperopic LASIK? We compared our results in refractive lens exchange and cataracts in patients after myopic LASIK or after hyperopic LASIK, and we implanted different trifocal IOLs. The results, published 3 years ago in the JCRS, show that predictability was good both in myopic and hyperopic group. However, the higher the myopia or the higher the hyperopia, the worse the predictability. Although patients with previous hyperopic LASIK had worse corrected distance visual acuity, both groups show similar uncorrected distance visual acuity and uncorrected near visual acuity with similar efficacy. So the answer is yes, we can operate on patients with previous hyperopic or myopic LASIK with trifocals. However, sometimes we have bad results with previous hyperopic LASIK. When can we expect a bad result in these patients? To answer this question, we conducted a study that we published 2 years ago in the Journal of Refractive Surgery, comparing our patients with previous hyperopic LASIK, the group that had CDVA lines loss, and the patients that didn't have any lines loss. We found that the worst results appeared when the hyperopia was great or when the Z40 was very negative. Those patients with previous hyperopic LASIK received a trifocal IOL with negative spherical aberration. What if the patients received a neutral spherical aberration trifocal IOL? To answer this question, we compared two groups of patients with previous hyperopic LASIK. One of them received a negative spherical aberration trifocal IOL, fine vision, and the other one, the Ray 1 trifocal IOL, that has a neutral spherical aberration. As we expected, we have better results in previous hyperopic LASIK if we use a neutral spherical aberration IOL. Now the last question, right? We've used a trifocal IOL in a patient that had undergone LASIK in the past, but residual refraction appears. What can we do? We presented 2 years ago in the JCRS a retrospective study of patients with a triple procedure, that is, LASIK, then trifocal, and then an enhancement. Patients were enhanced by lifting the flap, performing a PRK over the flap, or a new PRK. We found slightly better efficacy, safety, and predictability in patients with previous myopic LASIK, although this was not significant. Spectacle independence was very good in far, intermediate, and near distances, with similar overall satisfaction. So patients with previous myopic LASIK can receive a trifocal IOL if the higher order aberrations are not excessive and we have good topography and good corrected distance visual acuity. We can choose different trifocal IOLs depending on the Z40. Same after hyperopic LASIK. If higher order aberrations are not excessive and we have good topography and corrected distance visual acuity, we can choose a trifocal IOL. And depending on the Z40, we can choose different trifocals. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much. Now, Dan and Julio. And now is the debate, and the debate will be also with the participation of Eric Mertens from Belgium and Felix Gonzalez from Madrid. And the first question I will make to both of you is, from which age you would suggest to start with intraocular surgery, and why? And first to Dan, because you were the first speaker. When do you recommend, you are mostly a corneal surgeon, to go for intraocular surgery instead of corneal? You saw that more or less when cataract surgery appears, right?
Yeah. So, I said this in the talk, so I'm going to pull this out again. The age at which we use intraocular, and by the way, yeah, I resent your bias as saying I'm a corneal surgeon, therefore I would choose cornea. That would be saying that I'm either ignorant or unethical. I am neither. My basis for choosing intraocular surgery is based on safety and efficacy. And the fact is that the age at which you do lens surgery is the age at which either cataract, which is visually significant, meaning contrast reducing, or unstable refraction because the lens is growing or flattening. The point here being that if, as Julio just showed, if you induce spherical aberration in the cornea, you can use a monofocal IOL and avoid all of the disadvantages of multifocal diffractive IOLs for that patient's life. And you're maintaining the contrast, and you'll have a lower PCO rate, and at the end of the day, it costs less for the patient. Maybe you make less money, but that's only because you're tied to commercial social engineering. You see, we charge premium cataract surgery prices with monofocal IOLs. Because premium cataract surgery is not a premium lens. It is a premium thought process. So we're balancing corneal spherical aberration with a choice of intraocular lens. We will either increase the negative spherical aberration or decrease it. We will either increase the positive spherical aberration or decrease it based on what the cornea has already. And by the way, coma helps also. I mean, we know the oculentis works by coma. You can't put too much in, only the comfort works well. The others don't work so well. That's because too much coma is not good, but a little bit of coma is okay. And a lot of LASIK patients have a little bit of coma, and SMILE patients. So my choice is based on safety and efficacy. And, that comes number one,
Yeah. Now, Julio, for you, because it's clear that dysfunctional LA syndrome, which is exactly what is being defined by Dan, is the indication. What is your age in which you consider refractive lens as the best option? And second question, do you practice corneal refractive surgery for presbyopia? Julio?
Okay, thank you so much for your invitation to the meeting, Professor Elio. First of all, I didn't mention in my presentation, I don't have any financial interest in my presentation, so I'm not so lucky as you then. And second, what about the age? Well, my age for intraocular refractive surgery would be the age of presbyopia. According to my opinion, a patient with 42 years old is not a presbyopic patient. It's not. 43 years old is not presbyopic patient. Sorry, it's not. If you look, for example, to the paper that has mentioned Professor Reinstein, the one of Ganesh, JRS 2020, they include patients from 40 years old. What's that? That's not presbyopia. For sure, they will have good results with their presby LASIK, for sure. But they're including 40. Sorry, Dan. Sorry.
No. You can't just finish 50 things that are wrong.
let me finish that.
The definition of presbyopia is decrease in accommodation, inability to go from distance to near. So I have 38-year-old Chinese women who are already presbyopic. It's not age-based. It is.
Okay. Dan. Okay. For you, presbyopia starts with 38, not for me. So Professor Ali had asked me, when do you start? Okay, when?
Word I said.
Well, yes, but it's just your opinion. It's not mine.
You're not.
Dan, please let me finish.
You're not scientifically based.
Okay, let me finish. Okay, if you want, we will continue. We will continue with science, if you want.
Well, that's not science.
Okay, that's your opinion. Okay, let's finish with
define presbyopia. Define presbyopia.
The presbyopia is not 30 years old. Sorry, I'm not going to
define presbyopia.
Okay. So, Professor Alio, when do I start with intraocular refractive surgery? Usually, I don't perform intraocular refractive surgery with in myopic patients. I don't like that because of the risk of retinal detachment. What about emmetropic? I usually start after 50 or 52 years old. What about hyperopia? I don't care. Maybe younger than 50. It will depend on the amount of hyperopia. If I can perform a LASIK, maybe I would choose LASIK for a 40 years old, but not for a 47 maybe with a +4 or +5. So that will be my starting point. Not 38, not 42, maybe when presbyopia is starting. And that's just my opinion. Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Well,
having the debate,
I'm sorry, but
Eric,
you have not
you're much more.
I would like you,
Eric,
you're a scientist. You should be able to define what you're talking about. What is presbyopia?
So again, I think the audience doesn't want to look at that. That's just optometry. So let's talk about science, please.
Okay.
You were presenting. You were presenting your experience with your presby LASIK. Because yours is another presby LASIK.
No.
With your presby LASIK.
No.
There are many presby LASIKs.
No.
And that's not okay. According to the
Presbyopia is the gradual loss of the eye's ability to focus on nearby objects, typically noticeable in people as they enter their 40s or 50s. It is age-related, results from the stiffening of the lens inside the eye, which reduces the flexibility and makes it harder for the eye to change focus from distance to near. Symptoms of presbyopia include vertigo, and they need to hold reading material at arm's length. It has nothing to do with age. It is to do with accommodation.
Okay, that's your opinion. That's just your opinion.
No.
That's yours. It's your opinion.
I'm sorry.
I accept it.
I'm sorry, Julio, but you have a financial interest in trifocals.
No, I don't. I don't work. I don't work for a. No, I don't.
Your children's education with all the trifocals you're putting in.
I also perform corneal LASIK. I do LASIK. I do intraocular surgery. Listen, if you want, we can talk about science. That's what our audience want to talk about. So if you want, our Professor Alio can continue with the debate, but not about what presbyopia is. I know what presbyopia is.
Yeah. No, you don't know what presbyopia is.
Yeah, okay, no, I know.
Let me calm all of you. I think that let's take a third part opinion. Eric, you are mostly an intraocular surgeon. When do you indicate, not based on age, I agree, presbyopia is a variable issue depending on the accommodation and the patients have different profiles, But which is your profile for intraocular, which is your profile for corneal refractive surgery, if you practice corneal refractive surgery? Quickly, fast response.
Well, yes. Let me say I do corneal refractive surgery, I do phakic IOLs, and I do refractive lens exchange. For hyperopes, it's easy, of course, because those hyperopes, they gain for distance and for near. So the age is actually not an issue there. When you have a +7, 35-year-old, it's easy to perform refractive lens exchange.
Agreed.
Myopes or emmetropes, however, that's a completely different ballgame. As we know, the presbyopes, they're very difficult to please. So I will be very, very careful there. And most of the emmetropes I will not touch, not remove the lens, and I do the shrink, the Amaris, the Presbymax procedure, which is a corneal procedure, as you all know. And for myopes, we have to be very careful with the retinal detachment. When there is no posterior vitreous detachment, please do not do a refractive lens exchange, unless, of course, they have a cataract. Then you can't do anything else. Then remove the lens and then you have to discuss with the patient that they have a higher risk of retinal detachment of more than 10% the first 5 years after you take out a lens. So that is actually, in a few words, my approach.
Thank you very much. Now we need to move to the second debate, and the second debate, later, will be conducted by Professor Maldonado, and will be about corneal versus phakic IOL or intraocular refractive surgery in low and moderate myopia, which is a big topic as well. Miguel, you follow.
Okay, now we are moving to another debate. Now Professor Miguel Teus is going to talk about his side.
Cirugía refractiva corneal versus intraocular para baja y moderada miopía. El láser de femtosegundo, el LASIK de femtosegundo se considera actualmente el gold estándar para la corrección de este tipo de efectos refractivos. Sin embargo, tiene algunos contras que algunos autores, yo creo que de forma exagerada, dicen, como que el nivel de aberración de alto orden inducido por la corrección láser es alto e inaceptable, que la incidencia de ojo seco es frecuente y es un problema importante, mientras que con otros procedimientos como la lente fáquica, que es potencialmente reversible, no tendría lugar estos fenómenos. Sin embargo, destaquemos que las lentes fáquicas no tenemos capacidad de customizar ciertos parámetros como las aberraciones de alto orden, no hay distintos perfiles de asfericidad para la misma corrección dióptrica, y las complicaciones intraoculares que pueden surgir a corto y a largo plazo. Vamos a describir algunas de estas diferencias. Con respecto al ojo seco, se ha publicado en un estudio magnífico de muchos ojos que los pacientes sienten el ojo menos seco después del LASIK que antes de la cirugía, a los 3 y 6 meses después de la misma, naturalmente. Esto se debe a que el porte de lentes de contacto induce cierto grado de ojo seco. Sin embargo, hay un pequeño porcentaje de pacientes, en torno al 5%, que no tenían ojo seco preoperatorio y que desarrollan síntomas de ojo seco moderado o severo posoperatorio. Esto se debe a que durante la cirugía láser corneal se cortan nervios, estos nervios regeneran y en ocasiones lo hacen de forma aberrante, dejando un plexo que da sensación de disestesia, lo que se ha dado en llamar la córnea fantasma. Este plexo anómalo produce el síndrome de disestesia post cirugía LASIK. Aquí tenemos un paciente 3 meses tras la cirugía LASIK con una tinción puntata y un ojo seco severos, como tras levantar el flap mejoran los síntomas y los signos, probablemente porque volvemos a cortar los nervios y les damos una oportunidad de que regeneren mejor. Hemos encontrado, y lo publicamos en este libro, que este tratamiento es altamente eficaz para el control de estos casos que no responden, los escasos casos que no responden a tratamiento conservador. Luego podemos controlar hasta los casos más recalcitrantes de ojo seco post-cirugía. La incidencia de ectasia es realmente muy baja, sobre todo si seguimos las reglas tanto de la selección por topografía como no alterar más del 40% del tejido corneal por la cirugía. Y con respecto a las aberraciones de alto orden, si bien es cierto que hace 20 años, en este trabajo reciente que rescata tecnología de hace 20 años y nos dice que se inducía en torno a un 0,5 micras más de aberración esférica por la corrección de 4,5 dioptrías y hasta 1,04 para corregir 7 dioptrías, hoy en día esto no es así. Para la corrección de 4 dioptrías, con un algoritmo Custom Q de láser Allegretto, como podemos comprobar, el delta en Spherical Aberration es prácticamente cero, es decir, no inducimos un cambio en la aberración esférica significativo a pesar de estar corrigiendo 4 dioptrías de miopía como en este trabajo, y en este trabajo empleando un algoritmo aún más avanzado, basado en aberración de frente de onda con la misma plataforma, vemos como la aberración esférica de hecho disminuye. La fisiológica positiva se hace un poquito menor tras el tratamiento para corregir miopía. Luego, hoy en día podemos hasta mejorar la calidad óptica en términos de aberración de alto orden de la córnea con la tecnología actual. Luego, no nos valen los resultados de hace 20 años para justificar que ahora no hagamos una cirugía láser corneal por temor a esta inducción de aberraciones. En este metaanálisis de resultados enviados por los fabricantes a la FDA para obtener la aprobación, se puede comprobar cómo los pacientes realmente conducen mejor de noche después de la cirugía que cuando eran miopes y tenían que llevar gafas, y no hay diferencia significativa en los halos que ven los pacientes a los 6 meses tras la cirugía. Luego, la capacidad de conducir de noche y los halos realmente en promedio mejoran por la cirugía LASIK. Esto no sucede igual con la lente fáquica. Como sabemos, la más utilizada, la ICL, con el agujerito central, produce un leve empeoramiento de la visión nocturna. Como vemos, el 80 y pico % de los ojos, tanto con el modelo V4C como con el modelo V5, muestran un leve empeoramiento en la calidad de la visión nocturna, como reportó este estudio sponsorizado por el fabricante de las ICLs, dicho sea de paso. Y de forma no esperada, en este otro trabajo, los autores encuentran que la amplitud de acomodación disminuye en algo más de una dioptría tras el implante de una ICL en un ojo fáquico. Es decir, no respetamos la acomodación al 100%, probablemente porque la lente molesta algo con el cambio de forma del cristalino, mientras que con el láser, naturalmente, eso no tiene lugar. Con respecto a la presión intraocular, como podemos comprobar en este estudio, a 5 años de seguimiento, hubo un incremento en torno al 10% de los ojos, un aumento de entre 3 y 4 milímetros de mercurio, lo cual quiere decir que probablemente a largo plazo la presión intraocular, como ya sabemos, pueda ser un pequeño problema en estos ojos, probablemente por la dispersión pigmentaria. De manera que, para concluir, el láser femtosegundo es el gold estándar para la corrección de miopía baja moderada. El láser femtosegundo preserva las estructuras intraoculares perfectamente, no hay catarata, ni se altera la acomodación, ni la presión intraocular cambia. El ojo seco es poco frecuente y se resuelve espontáneamente o levantando el flap en casos recalcitrantes, y el LASIK con algoritmos de ablación modernos no produce cambio e incluso mejora el patrón de aberraciones de alto orden y la calidad visual. Gracias por su atención.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Next, Dr. Javier Mendicute is delivering his presentation.
Buenas tardes. En primer lugar, mi agradecimiento a los organizadores de ARI24 y en particular al profesor Alío por su amable invitación para participar en esta sesión. Estos serían mis conflictos de interés y que ninguno guarda relación con el tema de mi presentación hoy. Cuando hablamos de lentes fáquicas para corrección de miopías bajas o moderadas, estamos hablando de la implantación de lentes conservando el cristalino. Las indicaciones principales de este tipo de lentes son aquellos casos en los que está contraindicado hacer un procedimiento láser sobre la córnea, y estas contraindicaciones pueden ser algunas absolutas cuando hay características estructurales que pueden comprometer la evolución a largo plazo, y las relativas en los que no hay suficiente evidencia sobre sus bondades. Me centraré en lentes fáquicas tipo ICL en pacientes menores de 45 años. La última revisión sistemática en relación con este tema, en revisión Cochrane, data del año 2014, así que me referiré a otras fuentes. Cuando hablamos de las bondades de un procedimiento refractivo, estamos hablando en términos de predictibilidad, seguridad, estabilidad, eficacia y calidad visual. Si revisamos la literatura, podemos observar que las lentes fáquicas han demostrado ser superiores en la mayor parte de las medidas que he mencionado en relación con procedimientos refractivos corneales para corrección de este tipo de miopías. Respecto a la predictibilidad, las lentes fáquicas ofrecen resultados refractivos con más del 90% de los pacientes en menos de media dioptría, y esta predictibilidad es ligeramente más alta que la que podemos obtener con correcciones tipo láser, sean en técnicas LASIK o SMILE. En relación con la estabilidad, las lentes fáquicas ofrecen buena estabilidad a medio y largo plazo, incluso considerando modelos tóricos. Y respecto a la eficacia y seguridad, este tipo de procedimientos dan unos índices de eficacia superiores a 1,07 y de seguridad superiores a 1,09, que se mantienen más allá del año de la cirugía refractiva. Pero me voy a centrar en algunos aspectos relacionados con la calidad visual y la calidad óptica. Y para ello traigo estos artículos. Esta es una revisión en la que comparan los resultados refractivos con técnicas láser y lo que podía haberse obtenido en modelos con la implantación de lentes fáquicas, y analizan el MTF, el PSF y los autotipos simulados. En relación con el MTF para pupilas de 3 y 4,5 milímetros, los resultados son mejores para lentes fáquicas que para las correcciones láser sobre la córnea. Y si hablamos del PSF, las columnas encuadradas en rojo serían los resultados obtenidos tras corrección láser sobre la córnea, y la simulación obtenida si se hubiera implantado una lente fáquica pues serían las columnas en verde. Así que también aquí es evidente que los resultados en relación con el PSF serían mejores con una corrección con lentes fáquicas. Y en los optotipos simulados tenemos las mismas características, mejores resultados para pupilas de 3 y 4 milímetros y medio con lentes fáquicas que con corrección láser sobre la córnea. Otro aspecto que querría tratar sería el de la regresión miópica, que suele ser relativamente común en ambos tipos de procedimiento. La esclerosis nuclear de cristalino y la elongación de la longitud axial pueden ser comunes para ambas técnicas, pero es evidente que hay aspectos estructurales corneales que solo son modificados por los procedimientos láser, y las regresiones que se han observado son ligeramente mayores para las correcciones láser que para las correcciones con lentes fáquicas. Y en este otro trabajo, lo que se hacen son curvas de defocus miópico en pacientes corregidos con procedimientos láser sobre la córnea o con lentes fáquicas, y vemos que incluso en cicloplegia, es decir, evitando el sesgo que puede suponer la acomodación, para pequeños defectos refractivos residuales posoperatorios, las agudezas visuales son mejores si el paciente está implantado con una lente fáquica que si se le hubiera practicado un procedimiento láser sobre la córnea. Y esta es una característica importante a tener en cuenta, dado que la regresión es posible en este tipo de procedimientos y la tolerancia con lentes fáquicas sería mejor. Y respecto a la calidad de visión nocturna y en baja iluminación, en este estudio prospectivo evalúan estas características después de implantación de ICLs y procedimientos láser optimizados, y mejoran en ambos procedimientos, pero las diferencias son estadísticamente significativas, mejores para las lentes fáquicas que para las correcciones láser sobre la córnea. Si analizamos cuáles son los motivos para que con ICL se logren mejores resultados en relación con la calidad óptica en estas circunstancias, vemos que la menor incidencia de aberraciones de alto orden después de lentes fáquicas podría ser uno de los motivos, y la menor disminución de la magnificación al ser un procedimiento en cámara posterior el segundo. Como conclusiones, desde el punto de vista clínico y de características ópticas en relación con la calidad visual, las lentes fáquicas son superiores a los procedimientos láser corneales en términos de comportamiento visual postoperatorio en este tipo de pacientes miopes con bajas o moderadas miopías. E incluso en presencia de pequeñas regresiones o pequeños defectos refractivos residuales, podemos afirmar que con lentes fáquicas los pacientes tienen mejores agudezas visuales. Bueno, con esta presentación espero haber aportado argumentos para la próxima discusión, en la que trataremos las diferencias que podemos observar entre la implantación con lentes fáquicas o con corrección láser sobre la córnea en este tipo de pacientes. Me reitero en mi agradecimiento a la organización de ARI 2024. Muchas gracias.
Okay, thank you for your both presentations have been excellent, and they have provided light from the different sides of myopia correction. I would like to begin asking you both, what would you think about a myopic patient who has got a pupil under mesopic conditions, low mesopic conditions, dilating as much as 7 millimeters? It's something relatively common in the myopic patient. What would be your approach with your different techniques and your experience? Do you think this patient would benefit from one or the other better, having a pupil that dilates as much as 7 millimeters and phakic AOLs usually reach 6, but no wider than 6 millimeters? What is your approach to this patient with your own experience?
Well, personally, I think that this is probably the worst optical complication you may have with with an ICL. Patients with big pupils do have, the edge of the optic of the lens being uncovered by the iris, and I have some patients that have to use pilocarpine to be able to drive safely at night. So definitely, for patients with really huge pupils, LASIK is or laser correction is better in my hands.
May I say something? Okay. We studied 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we make a study with the CASIA, just a measurement the pupil in contact lenses in ICL post-op, and we studied just pre-op and post-op with the results. One very important clinical data is that 60% of patients implanted with an ICL have the pupil bigger than the optical zone. That's the reality. That's the clinical reality. But the most of that patient doesn't have any problem for driving or for the halos or for the dysphotopsia because they suffer a neurodetection after that. So 60% of patients after ICL has the pupil in a scotopic condition, of course, has the pupil bigger than the optical zone of the lens.
If I can jump in. So when we measure the pupil size, the pupil size we measure always bigger than in reality, than in the eye. So don't forget it. It's about 20 to 25% bigger, depending on, of course, the anterior chamber depth and, of course, the magnification of the cornea and the keratometry. But in many of those cases, when the cornea is thick enough, I would go for a smart side lenticular extraction with a 7.5 to 8 millimeter optical zone. I'm at the moment I'm at the meeting in Zagreb with Ivan Gabric. He is performing routinely with smart sight with big zones from 7 to 8 millimeters, and in these cases they give brilliant results in those big pupils. So that is something you have to consider. It's not LASIK, of course, but I think lenticular extraction in most of those cases is the best solution. And actually, also in my clinic, I didn't perform LASIK on my patients since more than a year. If possible, I do lenticular extraction in those cases.
Okay. Now I would like to ask Dr. Mendicute, to what extent phakic IOLs being reversible is a true advantage, and what is your criteria for the typical low to moderate or medium myopic patient?
Yeah, firstly, I have to say that my first option for low myopia is obviously laser correction over the cornea. But I think that the one issue quite important related with that is the age. When one patient older than 40, that they are looking for laser vision correction, but if they are thinking about the possibility to be operated with intraocular lenses in the future, could be important for me in order to recommend an ICL, because I think that the reversibility and the possibility to offer the ICL for the next future could be a little bit better. Could be interesting to discuss about the age related with these procedures.
Okay, thank you. And I would like to ask you all, anyone can answer, do you think that new phakic IOLs that are also have some presbyopic approach like the Viva or the RT Plus are going to change in any way the scope of our options for the myopic patient reaching presbyopic age?
I'm very interested in those developments, but the real thing is that after some years, especially with the ICL Viva, it's not the rule to implant this kind of lenses, so it's not generalized. Probably I have some doubts related with other developments, because I have had also the experience with other platforms. I think that the situation now is not clear for presbyopic correction with those lenses.
Yes, I think I can agree with you, Javier. I've done the European study with the ICL FIFA, and it also is working with spherical aberration. But as Dan says, it has to be centered on the visual axis. The ICL is not centered on the visual axis in almost all cases. So actually, you induce coma, and also with us, with the oculentis lenses, when you have coma, it's most of the time it's too much. So that's why patients are in many cases not satisfied with the FIFA. You have also the IPCL with the diffractive design, but this is bifocal. They can see for near, they can see for distance, but the intermediate is weak. That's why you have to play with when you use the IPCL with presbyopia correction, you're doing the dominant eye, distant dominant eye, so less addition, so they can see distance and intermediate with the dominant eye. With the non-dominant eye, they have the full correction for near. So you have to mix and match there, which is also not an ideal solution. I don't have any experience with the off-take lens. It's just recently on the market. There have been studies done by Jose Gual and Rudy Knights, and we're anxiously looking in that because it's a zonal approach. You have a distance and a near just right next to each other, and we will have to see whether this approach gives better vision. I think so, because you can center that artisan lens on the visual axis. You have to be a very skillful surgeon because you have to inculcate the iris in the claws. But I think this can be a next step in phakic lenses to have presbyopic correction as well.
May I say something?
Professor Alio, would you like to?
I would like to say that, I kind of think it's something more precise, like excimer laser. No, let's make just a kind of different perspective. Imagine that up to now, we could only implant intraocular lens, phakic, to correct low and high and intermediate myopia, even high myopia, and then all of a sudden, it came a procedure in which, without invading the eye, we can, with extremely high precision, correct any level of myopia, and not only that, to correct our mistakes, biases, or simply variations that happen in the outcome. And if you have, for instance, hyperopic cases, this is a myopia debate, well, any type of problem with accommodation, and you have a cumulative span, what can you do? You need only to change the lens, while in corneal refractive surgery, you can make a touch-up. Similar in myopic surgery with the cornea. And so I think that Dan probably will be aligned with me that probably the most logical procedure is excimer laser, not giving any disadvantage to phakic lenses, other than could be a second option far away from what is ideal, because definitely the precision, the safety, the predictability, and the long-term background that we have with millions of LASIK procedures performed makes LASIK to be ideal. What do you think, Dan, about this debate, even though you are from the previous debate?
Yeah, no, I'm aligned with you, obviously, as you predicted. For obvious reasons, a company that has a single product would like that product to go in every eye. And it's the same with, when Zeiss started with Smile, they said Smile is better than LASIK, but they stopped doing that because they realized it was stupid. Contura is better for every eye. Well, we know that only 3% of eyes benefit from Contura, from a topography-guided treatment. So every company says that their thing should be for all eyes. The fact is, I'm going to go back to the principle. The principle, as you said, is safety and efficacy. And when you're talking about certainly accuracy, as you said, because by the way, there was a study from AREA in China that was presented at ESCRS last year. I think it's been published, where they literally compared matched controls for myopia up to -4 with astigmatism, Smile versus ICL. And quite unbelievably, I was quite surprised, Smile was more accurate. Now, actually, in thinking about it, we all understand why that is. Cylindrical correction with the ICL is not as accurate because, well, those things don't stay in the same axis every time. So actually, when we look at the patient's perspective, and I always think, if the patient knew everything I knew, what would they choose? And that's the way I think we should be choosing procedures. It's like saying to a patient, no, laser is on the cornea for presbyopia. This is really bad. It doesn't work, and like all these negatives. But I have so many happy patients with my trifocal lenses, or the ICL is a premium. It costs more than SMILE. That's because it's better vision and you're not taking tissue out. You don't get dry eye. All of these claims that are sort of very, very weak that are made. At the end of the day, if the patients knew what the intelligentsia is around all of this, they would choose the procedure that's safest, most accurate, with the least side effects. They would not choose based on these marketing terminologies.
That's correct. Okay, Dr. Usubiaga, would you like to add something from your perspective?
I totally agree with Professor Reinstein. We have to personalize the choice for every patient. So I prefer LASIK surgery, so corneal approach, for myopic presbyopes. However, for emmetropic presbyopes and hyperopic presbyopes, I choose refractive lens exchange with a trifocal IOL. So for sure, we have to personalize. That's why I am a corneal surgeon and an intraocular surgeon. I can choose both.
Okay, and
other vision, we have all of the options also, and we choose whichever is most appropriate. This idea that Dan spent 20 years becoming an expert at fixing complications, which maybe you can't fix, Julio. The fact that I can do things that I invented, epithelial mapping and all that, it's because I gave up cataract surgery. I had other things that I needed to do, and you're welcome. You're welcome for me spending all that time on the cornea, because otherwise you wouldn't have all these things. But here's the thing. Suggesting that someone cannot have the knowledge of the accuracy, safety, and efficacy of a procedure that they don't perform is a little bit insulting and absurd.
And just talking about science, you know, Dan, that presby LASIK, if you type presby LASIK or presbyound, if you love that word most in PubMed, you have 10 papers, just 10 papers, type trifocal. You will have 20 times more. 800. So that's medical evidence. You know what? Professor Alio said in an up-to-date review about presby LASIK, which included presbyound for sure, that most of the papers are just up to 6 to 12 months follow-up. There are very few papers, he says, and he says there is a lack of strong evidence. That's not my opinion. It's the opinion of Professor Alio. So listen, this is science. Your papers are for 100 eyes, 200. Our papers about trifocal are 10,000 eyes. So that's science, Dan. That's it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about science.
Julio, you know what's amazing about your papers is that you hide the fact that so few eyes are 20/20 by using mean vision, mean logmar with a standard deviation. I did a calculation while you were presenting, and I actually calculated the percentage of eyes based on your outcomes. And using your mean logmar and your standard deviation, you can model based on a normal distribution what percentage of eyes would be 20/20. And the error analysis says that between 55 and 75% would be 20/20. So Julio, please, 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 I don't care if you had 1 million eyes. If you don't publish using the standard graphs for reporting refractive surgery, it's not science. We have a standard in refractive surgery. You're not whole. I don't care how many eyes you publish. You're doing it in a way that can't be compared. And just number of eyes or number of publications is not science. By the way, there are 15 publications just on presbyound. There are something like 40 publications on multifocal corneas. So you don't know the literature. I have a literature shirt. I can show it to you right now. And what I find I really recommend to you is that you stop putting all corneal refractive presbyopic procedures in one box, because the procedures that are to do with changing spherical aberration only are not to be classified with multifocal corneas. It would be like classifying a vivity, or no, vivity is a multifocal. It would be like classifying an eye-hance in the same class as a Zeiss trifocal. It's not in the same class. So you're just saying, oh, it's just cornea surgery. So I really would suggest that you please separate those two things and have a good, I can send you all 15 papers on Presbyon, and I would love your critique. I really would, because it would mean a lot to me if you read that and then tell me what the difference is between what you're offering, the same a 53-year-old plus 2, when I'm offering a 53-year-old plus 2 a corneal procedure that gives them a better option for cataract surgery when they get a cataract, if they get a cataract, using a monofocal. I have these lenses on my desk, and I use them every single day with my patients, and I say, this is the lens that you will have with cataract surgery if you just have cataract surgery. If you pay more money, you can have this lens in your eye. And every patient goes, Zeiss gives me this to sell it. And I use it to compare. I say this, and everybody goes, huh? That goes in an eye? I go, yeah, it's amazing. 80% of people adapt to having this in their eye. It's amazing. Of course, it means that 20% don't adapt, and about 5% have difficulties driving at night, which is 0 with these lenses. So again, Julio, please, let's be fair here, okay? I'm not saying what you're doing is wrong. I'm just saying that there is a way of classifying safety and accuracy and efficacy and side effects, which I did, I hope, very clearly in my talk, which demonstrates that, look, if there isn't a cataract, give the patient the opportunity not only for a monofocal later, which you already talked about in your talk, so you already know that, but also, what if 10 years from now there's a better IOL? And now they don't have the opportunity to have that. Jorge's, I'm waiting for the ACO lens to become CE marked, because that thing looks really interesting. I've been following this for 10 years. He has 5-year data showing 3 diopters of accommodation. If you put in a trifocal today into someone who could have had corneal surgery, they can't have the ACO lens in the future when they get a cataract. So let's just be, I mean, I know we're doing a lot of theater here between you and me, and of course we're good friends, and if we weren't shouting, you know that show Unplugged, when they're all shouting at each other with the Palestinian whatever. Yeah, okay, so it's fun. But at the end of the day, this is a really serious conference. There's 2,000 people watching this around the world. And I think that we owe it to ourselves and to our colleagues to standardize refractive surgery. Because, the public hears this debate and they're going to take sides. And that's not good for all of us. Because when the patients are confused, they just say, you know what, the experts don't agree with anything, I'm not doing anything. And I think we need to raise the confidence of the public by agreeing on protocols. Like Eric, I agree with every word he said. It wasn't a one-sided, argument. It was horses for courses, as we say in English. I don't know what that is in Spanish.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think that the debate has been extremely fruitful. Everybody has his own opinion. I think that it's right we are in an evidence-based moment. Evidence is leading our medical opinion, and science is our goal. So I want to thank all of you and Dr. Miguel Maldonado as well for your contribution to our science, to our perspective, and our understanding about what we have to do in the benefit always of our patient. We close the debates. The 2 debates has been great. Thank you, all of you, and I think that the session is going to be closed by Dr. Maldonado.
Okay, it's been a pleasure to have all these experts talking about so hot topics, and I think that the exciting movement of our profession is towards having standards that can be applied to our daily basis care of our patients. And I think all the talks and all the opinions that have been put over the table will enhance our practice and will come closer to our good doing with our patients departing from science. So thank you all of you for your good and inspirational talks. Thank you.
Thank you.